And welcome back to Ask Amy About Aging. I'm aging maven aficionado, Amy Gaskin. And again, I am joined once again with Dr. DeLon Canterbury of geriatrics. And welcome back to my show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes. And why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into
Sure.
our topic of caregiver advocacy today.
Perfect. My name is Dr. DeLon Canterbury. I am the founder of Geriatrics. We are a telehealth deprescribing consulting service for patients, caregivers, and providers who are dealing with over medication and side effects. So we specialize in the power of deprescribing and genetic testing to help people get the best out of their meds.
Wonderful. And so today we're going to be talking about caregiver advocacy, which is very near and dear to my heart because I've been in the senior industry for a very long time. And we talk to caregivers and they really need help.
Yes, they really do. I started my company Geriatrics in 2020, and it was because as a retail pharmacy manager, all I kept seeing were meds and seniors, and they weren't meshing very well, and they didn't really
Right.
know what to do. And so their daughters or loved one or wife sometimes will be a caregiver, and they'll want to know, is this really the best for daddy or papa or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's usually not. It's usually not. It's usually a number of issues, and they generally don't know who to ask. And so when I was at Walgreens, I never felt I could fully advocate in the way that I can now as a concierge personal pharmacist. So I bring this up to say that our very first client was a caregiver who was worried about her mom, and her mom had some mild dementia changes, cognitive impairment, but she was characterized as being a walking zombie.
Yeah.
She was drooling, she was out of it, she was in her room, she felt like she was wasting away. And Amy, when I tell you, when I did my first med review,
Yeah.
this woman was on 36 medications.
Oh my gosh.
36
I
medications.
love the daughter who was trying to figure out when and times to give them to her. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, exactly. The dosing is somewhere twice a day, three times a day.
Yeah.
And the dark side of this story is this woman had a neurologist, primary care doctor, there was a long-term care medical officer. There were all these people and they weren't even talking to each other with the
That's the
meds.
big problem with medicine today is they're not talking together. And as much as I hate HMOs, I'm wondering if that's the way to go because because you have to actually get permission to go to all these farm. I don't know. I
Right,
can't
just
figure it
out
out.
of network. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of energy, but needless to say, this woman was on 36 meds. We did a med review, right? So I did what I
Mhm.
do, our deprescribing action plans. We were able to get her down to 8 prescriptions.
Wow.
8. Because there was a lot of stuff on there that's just been never been addressed. It's just been on and on for decades, and no one's asking, hey, do we really need this? Is it doing more harm than good? And so this woman was unfortunately about to be involuntarily committed into a nursing home because the other half of her family knew she was wealthy and
Yeah.
they wanted to stick her in a home and seize all her assets and her money and her house that their daddy left, who was deceased, to her. So the only person who didn't believe that she was really going away was the one who hired me, the daughter
Right.
who's also the caregiver. So I was able to advocate using my pharmacist voice. And this is why I believe pharmacists are the best kept secret for
Mhm.
caregivers dealing with a loved one. Um, and so we were able to prove in court because she ended up hiring us as a medical expert on their behalf. We were able to prove that this woman is being so over medicated that it's masking the symptoms of really having dementia, which the other
Right.
family was trying to argue. And Amy, I tell you, this was one of the ugliest cases I've been in. I mean, there's lawyers literally asking, where were you 3 years ago on this date at this time, and trying to make her look stupid and incompetent so that they can, again, throw her into her home. I was like, look, this is evil. I'm
Yeah.
going to do what I do. And we gave that full report, and the case was dropped. the
Of
case was.
course, there's a lot of medicines out there that make someone look like they have dementia. And you go
Mhm.
into some of these like memory care communities and they're literally like zombies because
Yeah,
they're over medicated.
right.
I know that a friend of mine built from the ground up a memory care community. And
Nice.
when people came in, he reviewed all their medicines and a lot of times took them off a lot of the stuff that made them zombie like. And the loved one ended up thriving in the community because once they were off the medicine and in the right environment, they didn't need all the
I
zombie like
love it.
drugs, etc. So
I love it.
especially with people with memory loss, I have a big heart for them because you know uh, they say that if you have memory loss, the worst thing that can happen is nothing else happens to you because you can die of something else because dying of memory loss, it just does everything to you. But if
Mhm.
medicines make it worse, it's even sad.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. We've come this far and worked this hard in this country. Why are we paying to slowly kill our loved ones off in some of these facilities that are using these medicines inappropriately? But
Hmm.
that's the piece that I've made essentially my business model is showing the importance of how pharmacists can help caregivers maneuver this and how we can use our medication skills to give people the tools to ask those questions when they're in the doctor's office and are prepared. Like if they're worried about falls, like are these blood pressure meds working too well? They're too low. So why are they fainting? If they're getting up too fast, why are they walking is impaired? Why is a senior taking wine with their benzodiazepines or anxiety meds that can cause people to black out? And I see this. So there's an advocacy from the drug standpoint, but there's an advocacy in the healthcare realm that I think is missing, is because we just kind of assume people should know all this. Like, how do you expect a caregiver to just know all this medical stuff because they have a new diagnosis? Like, they're just regular people who
Yeah,
stumbled upon this and now they have to figure it out. So there's a lot more we
exactly.
can do.
Most caregivers, they don't have the tools. That's one of the reasons I started asking me about aging is because of the thousands, and I mean thousands of people I chatted with that were thrown into the situation over the decades. I've been almost like 12 years. I've been talking to families about this,
Hmm.
and they don't have the tools. And
Right.
so someone like you is an incredible tool to somebody that is got to be in charge of someone's medication. Here's the adult daughter. She was an accountant that knows nothing about medicine, and now all of a sudden had to leave her job to take care of her mom or dad, and now she's got to be in charge of their medicines. She's got to
Right.
know how do I handle this kind of situation. So it's when you age, you need to be surrounded by people that can help you. It says they say it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to care for an aging loved one.
Yes, it does. You have to have a care team as a caregiver. You have to have someone to help with the elder care attorney, someone to help with finances, someone to help with um, research, benefits research, right?
Hmm.
Looking for what you get or like maximizing pensions, whatever. But you got to have people in your network. You can't caregive alone. And sadly, you can't always depend on your family. You got to just build that network of reliable people that are there for you. So not to cause you stress either. And you have to have time for self-care,
Right.
time for that too.
Yeah, you have to have time for everything. And so many people, the siblings, if you're not the actual caregiver, and your sister or brother is caring for mom, and you all of a sudden go over there and decide that mom, because mom says, oh, I haven't seen Rita for 3 days, and then the sibling goes, what do you mean? She said she was here every day, and she was. We had to do that with my nana. She had a calendar on her bed, and every time someone visited, we signed in so that when my auntie Barbara came in, she would say, oh, I see Amy came in today to see you, and that helped my nana. But a lot of
Mhm.
times the senior, because of the medicines they're on or because they have dementia, don't remember what's going on anyhow.
Correct. Correct.
And so the people that are not there all the time in the trenches, the ones that are there all the time in the trenches are the ones that get attacked by their family and say things happen that doesn't happen. And so it's amazing. You have to make sure you have the tools and make sure the family, if your family member is caring for your loved one, be on their team. Don't go against
Mhm.
them be on their team and be together and help them, give them the time off that that they need.
Right.
They can have time for themselves, but make sure they have all the resources they need as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a plan. Have a plan in place. Stick to the plan and have a backup plan for that backup plan.
You always need a backup plan. Plan A, B, C, D, all the way down to plan Z.
Contingency plans. Yep.
Yeah.
It's so important. But yeah, again, I think pharmacists, even just generally the healthcare system, right? We really underappreciate the value of caregivers and patient advocates and people who know how to maneuver the system and say the right things, like know the language, like know how to talk the doctor lingo and the caregiver lingo. So it's a fine art, and honestly, I really implore people to explore having someone who helps manage these care plans for families, and it can just take a lot off your plate.
It absolutely can. And I found out that a lot of insurances, especially Medicare, actually have someone that will kind of go through and kind of help the caregiver and walk through this stuff and say, hey, I noticed that they're on 32 prescriptions, for instance. Maybe we should get that reviewed and listen to people. If you feel your loved one is on medicine that's making them a zombie, there's probably a reason for that, and that we need to get a genetic testing done, or we need to go and de-prescribe some of them, because it's not, we can't. We want to give the best quality of life for everyone. The senior that's aging as well as the caregiver, and it's hard to watch somebody on a zombie all day on a medicine. It's kind of scary, and especially if you don't know how the medicine's going to make them react. I know that I was one of the families I served up in New Hampshire. She insisted on taking care of her dad, who had dementia. She had 3 sons, very close to Grandpa. The family was very excited to have Grandpa move in. Their age is like 13 to 17. She was 20 minutes from like reality. So if she had to go to the grocery store, it's 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, whatever. And Grandpa was sleeping on the couch, and Mom said to the boys, I got to go to the store. And they told her to go. And they would watch Grandpa. And she said, just keep him in the house. Well, he woke up early. And because of the medicines he was on, he was just acting really weird. And they said, well, we'll stay inside. Let's watch TV. They tried everything. And he didn't remember who he was or where he was. He felt like he was being hostage. He went outside to the shed and started chasing them around with an axe.
Oh, my gosh.
That's your last memory of Grandpa. Wow. And that is not a cool memory to have as your grandfather. And then they watch the police, walk him away. But the medicine caused him to do that. Wow. Had he been placed or, appropriately, or had been on the right medicines, that wouldn't have happened. And it came out later on that it was the medicines that made him do it. Wow. But you're going to tell your 13-year-old that you got to forgive Grandpa because it was a medicine? They're teenagers, so then they're going to lose the last bit of everything. So quality of life is very important. So being on the right medicines is very much key.
Right. And that's why we had to just hire your own personal pharmacist, which is my whole business model, is providing these concierge services with geriatrics and helping families navigate this.
Right. And I'm going to have your contact information in the comments under this video. Any last words you'd like to give our listeners?
Use your pharmacist and don't take no for an answer. Ask those questions and don't feel rushed in a medical office. Simply use that time to have everything mapped out and addressed that you may have questions about for your loved one.
Well, thanks again. Again, this is Aging Maven Aficionado Amy K. Gaskin on Ask Amy About Aging. And I'm very grateful to have had Dr. DeLon Canterbury on today of geriatrics. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.